It's This Week in X presented by Crushing Comics, and we have reached the end of the Hellfire Gala here in X Factor number 10 out on the 30th of June, 2021. Let's go around and get our final Hellfire Gala issue reactions, starting with Tyler.
I'm bad at saying goodbye.
Harry.
Party doesn't end with a bang, but a whimper.
Fariha.
Sometimes a bad ending can sour the whole series for me. And you, Peter?
It's hard to separate a rushed ending from bad narrative choices. Well, we're going to have a lot to talk about here, so join us for a full discussion of X Factor number 10. All right, folks, we are here for a full discussion of X Factor number 10 on This Week in X, and it comes with our typical spoiler warning. Clearly, we're going to talk about the whole Hellfire Gala. There's a huge spoiler at the end of this issue, which we are going to talk about in full, probably right from our reactions to the issue. And we're probably going to speculate a little bit about what's to come. So know that all of that is going to be a part of this discussion. Also, this issue has specific plot and themes of racialized violence and sexual assault. So we are probably going to mention those in the course of this episode and this discussion about X Factor. So if that's not going to be a safe conversation for you to be a part of, we completely understand. And we'll see you on other episodes of This Week in X. X Factor number 10, we are going to go around and get our full initial reactions without getting too deep into plot, as is our way, starting with Tyler.
Well, initially I was going to sing, but I don't want to get into copyright issue. So this will be something like, in the tune of My Way, which is like, and now the end is here. So I wish it could go on forever. The art is impeccable. The colors are awesome. I mean, the writing is full of heart. It makes me cry with joy and sadness. And this is X Factor. I wish I could say this is a 5 out of 5, but unfortunately I couldn't. So I still like it. It's not perfect. The landing is, rushed. So I mean the best I could give it, and it is based on the previous 9 issue, is a 4 out of 5.
Harry, what about you?
We've talked a lot about, we've sung Baudian's praises since the beginning of this, and you don't realize how much this book starts to falter until he disappears.
Yes.
I'm sorry that the opening's great, it's clicking, but then they have 2 other artists, and it lacks the expressionism, the emotions, and between just the feeling being off and just the bad story choices that I think Williams makes and the rush choices that I think she has to make, it all the problems compound that by the end I was just like, this is not even working like in any way for me, which sucks. Like, last issue we were all really mad and I was mostly kind of numb, but then I was reading this issue, I'm like, no, this sucks. This whole situation, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but this clearly was not the original ending, or something was planned. And it really just was left me on a sour note. So I'm going to give it a 2.5 art changes out of 5.
Fariha, what about you?
The thing is, it's really hard to kind of be critical of this issue because a lot of the choices that was made and that needed to be made was done because of cancellation, and because of that, a lot of things needed to be put in. But at the same time, I've been kind of thinking about it, and I was looking. I kind of quickly, screened through the other 9 issue, and it seems like we spent a lot of time doing a lot of other things and then not a lot of time on any of this, so that the plot threads like that were, instead of just rather letting them hang and let someone else pick them up, Williams decided to end them here, and somewhat poorly so. And so that's one of the reasons it just kind of ended up feeling flat. There are some really great points, like great moments in here that I really enjoyed. However, at the same time, there were some some things that were going on. I'm like, was there any editor who edited this and knew that the rest of the Marvel universe or what's been going on, especially one related to Children of Adam? And so because of all of that, I was just thinking that this is like a hot dessert that was served cold.
Or maybe a cold dessert that was served hot. Nobody likes that.
I love these descriptions you've been
That would be the worst.
These are great.
I don't know.
Serve lukewarm.
Here's some melted ice cream. Get out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's sticky. Enjoy it.
That's exactly, yeah. So it's like, but the thing is that I actually got by the ending though. That got me. That then my ice cream suddenly got like, you know, got soft serve again. Poor metaphor. Very poor metaphor.
We're gonna wrap up the ice cream metaphor. Gosh, it's so hard to speak on this. I think the thing that really struck me and that I couldn't help thinking about the whole time is that this was Leah Williams' first ongoing series, as far as I know. And it was something she engaged in thinking it was open-ended. And she didn't realize it was not going to be open-ended until issues 9 and 10. No other series in the X-Men line has been put in this situation that we're aware of. Fallen Angels, I guess, but it's still like completed in arc, right? Yeah. And so it's hard for me to separate my critiques out because there's a lot of things happening. I think there's Leah Williams kind of making glib choices that she could stand to make when there was more room, but when there's less room, it comes off incredibly poorly and maybe damaging or offensive or traumatic to people. So I think there's that. I think there's also kind of like not knowing how to end something that was ongoing. Like many other, you know, Al Ewing has been through this a ton of times. Al Ewing can land the plane when his series gets cut off short because he's had to land that plane a lot of times. And also then I think, you know, to Fariha's point, I really look back and wonder, like, was this used efficiently? It's kind of like a you know, a kid who gets unleashed on this huge playground and is like, ah! But then they just spend all their time on the one thing they think is the coolest. And then you're like, it's time to go. And they're like, but I didn't do all the other things, right? So I think it's hard to separate my reaction and the positives and the negatives of this issue from just looking at it as an ending. I think it was a poor ending. I think the execution was bad. I actually didn't have as much trouble with the art changes just in consuming the art, but I'm sure that detracted from things, knowing the symbiotic relationships that Leah Williams and David Baldeón has. I think partially Israel Silva being on, I believe, all of the colors really probably helped me tie it together because you know that I'm a real fiend for color consistency. And you know, I think we have a lot to talk about. It, unfortunately, the thing I'll end on is I think it makes it hard to recommend the X Factor series, which I wanted to come away and be able to say, this is a really cool series. You should always go back to it the way I do. I think the last time I felt that way is probably Christina Strain's Generation X. And I unfortunately just don't feel like I can say that about X Factor due to 9 and 10.
So I'm glad that you brought up the point of like how to, like, you know, that this is supposed to be ongoing and this is supposed to be like, you know, this was cut short. And the reason I am actually kind of blaming Williams for this, because the thing is a lot of plot threads that was introduced that, oh, mutants being murdered and we need X Factor to go and solve those murders. The thing is, whether you know it, that whether you're going to have an ongoing series or not, a lot of the things that we saw in this issue that was like, you know, solved should have been first arc. Forget X of Sword, forget all of that. This should have been the first arc. And I don't know why there was the whole thing with the Morrigan and all of that happened. Because if you took those out and she actually just finished this story, this would have been a perfectly good story. And then she could have introduced Morrigan after the arc is over. Because that's how arc stories are told, right? Because you start a thread and you end it. But this first thread was started in the first issue. Then we went into the whole thing with the other world. Mojoverse. Then Mojoverse. Then that thread got left. Then we started with the Morrigan thread. That thread didn't end. So you can't, when you are a new writer and you got your first ongoing, you cannot start with all these threads already, like you said, like a playground, like, oh my God. And now you got into a situation where you have to end all of this in 2 issues. Yeah, I think that's a story structure problem. That's like,
but if the principal on the playground cuts time without telling the kid, I'm not going to blame the kid. I don't know.
Yeah,
like I had a plan. It just got. I don't like it. She had a plan. It just didn't have what she wanted.
Or the expectation is that, well, you know, you don't usually cut someone off with just an issue and a half notice, right? Like you give them, say, maybe, okay, I'm going to give you like 3 issues or 4 issues. You got to end there. And I mean, that make a lot more sense for her. And Leah Williams might have been like, okay, if I get cut, I have 1 issue to do this, 1 issue to do this, maybe 2 issues to resolve this. and that should be fine. But given that she was halfway through plotting, in the middle, at the ending of an arc, and being told that you're going to be canceled the next issue, that is actually really, really bad. Could she have done better? I agree that some of the choices that she made here is not great, but my defense for that is the same as Harry's defense, is that it really is the fault of the editor for not telling her earlier.
Oh yeah, 100% agree. I 100% agree on that. But I was actually thinking about it from the point of view of Kelly Thompson's King Deathpool, how it got cancelled, but then because she was only dealing with one plot thread that she introduced, she finished the first arc, and then she okay, this is the world is going to be, and then issue 7 she started a new plot thread, and then issue 10 she's like, yeah, we got canceled, so and I understand she can do it with Deadpool, she can have Deadpool say those things, right? It's fine. But the thing is, because she's introduced them in very small chunk, and she was also told, I believe in issue 8, that she's getting canceled with an event tie-in for her last issue. So that I was kind of thinking about it from that point of view. I'm like, well, that was because the story was structured in a way that even though it wasn't good, even though it kind of left oh, okay, meh, but it had an ending. That's what I was thinking. And I'm not saying that, it's the Marvel editors are free of their sin over here. Anyway.
Well, I think there are a lot of editorial problems with this that start with the hurry up ending and extend to specific words and dialogue balloon placement in this issue. I often find myself wondering what anybody in that X office is doing editing. I know that sounds really cruel, but there's some things that editorial professionals should have caught in this issue, and we'll get into it. But I do want to address that whole thread of discussion, which is, I think there's this resurgence, especially in the X office, because people feel like they're guaranteed space, of people who are doing these long plot threads. Like Benjamin Percy's out there on Twitter bragging it's going to take 25 issues for this thing from number 1 to come back, which, here's the thing. I think people make this subtle mistake because they're looking back at Claremontian X-Men or, George Perez, Wonder Woman or Teen Titans or whatever the case may be, and looking at these long plot threads. But they were not seated with the explicit expectation that they were going to get resolved.
Yes.
And also, if those people had to leave the title or something changed, sometimes they would just let them dangle. Claremont left so many danglers behind. That's part of the allure of the Claremont run. And I think the thing that's happened now is that people want to have these long standing threads, but they want to be the ones to solve all of them. And that's partially because nobody left them any threads from the prior thing, because people they're not generous with their plot threads. And so what happens is that people try to do all these long running plot threads, but they're not yes-anding. It's not good improv. And so then they get to the end of their series and they want to shut all of them down. Now, I respect if Leah Williams had certain threads that she wanted really to see to the end here, but I think that we can see that in a lot of comics where the person is in a rush to resolve all their things. Leave some mystery, yo. And I think, Kelly Thompson, I do not want to have a practice of pitting two female writers at Marvel against each other, but Kelly Thompson's been cut short a few times now. Her Hawkeye ended not abruptly, but not as long as she wanted it to end. Her West Coast Avengers certainly did as well. And on her Captain Marvel right now, it's running and running, but she knows that no further arc is guaranteed. And I think that she has learned from some other folks at Marvel how to leave some threads untied, and maybe she's not going to get to them, and maybe that's just going to live on. So what I want is for Leah Williams to be that great and go into the future and be that great. But unfortunately, this is her first time at bat with that kind of stuff. Her Mary Jane series got canceled with even not a next issue. They just stopped shipping it. So, I feel for her, but it doesn't absolve her and the editors of harm done by some of the choices in this issue. But Fariha, why don't you give a final comment on that and then we'll move on.
No, I was going to say the Captain Marvel is the peak example of how to write a story in Marvel when you have no guarantee of the next, because every arc opens and leaves you one thread that she picks up in the next issue of the next arc. And
but if she didn't, it would be fine.
It would make no difference.
Right.
It would make no difference.
Because I found myself reading it last week saying, wow, there's a lot of things in this that are 10 or 15 issue old plots at this point, but at no point previously did I think, I can't believe that this plot hasn't been resolved. That it's just a little bit more yes, Andy.
Yeah, and it actually makes sense because she's been like Kelly Thompson's been writing longer than Leah Williams.
And she's been screwed many times already on getting stuff canceled. All right, let me outline the 3 chunks we're going to do here, okay? We're going to talk about Gala Wrap-Up, anything we want to say about what happened at the gala before David departs. Then we're going to talk about David's plot, and that will come with some ample warning because it's going to have some content issues that some folks won't want to engage with. And then we're going to talk about that stunning final reveal. So keep it tight until we get all the way there. So I want to start with Gala Wrap-Up. And because Tyler is the king of receipts, I want to start with Tyler. What do you think is worth commenting on here? And X Factor's kind of getting ready for the gala, their entry to the gala, and then some of the scenes we see playing out with them at the gala.
I mean, okay, first thing first is this. Not quite related to your question, but I just wanted to mention this, right? Like, because Leah Williams and Beldion is forced to like really condense everything. It is a really brilliant use of iBoy's power to collapse like 2 pages of panel into like half a page.
And it's something they're very good at doing together. Like they have developed this language. You can't say that anybody else used iBoy effectively previously. And the visual language, I hope it gets continued, but you really see them use it to great effect here when they need to accelerate some of the plot.
Exactly. Okay, so in terms of dangling plot, this Prodigy David leaving the gala scene has one big one, right? And that would be the plot that was left hanging in issue 1. And that is how or why Aurora died. We covered that in the dance scene, which is, probably just like a page of dialogue. And Dakan, basically, Aurora was attacked by bigots and she killed one of them. And therefore, she resorted to killing herself to cover her own tracks. Dakan figured that out and killed the rest.
So now they're both culpable because they've both killed a bunch of humans, and we know the rules.
So now here's my question, though, because it's not this Aurora who killed, it was another Aurora who's dead, and her
has no recollection of it.
Yeah,
she has no recollection of it. So who's going to be on trial?
It's more uncertainty about how these rules are applied, right? Like everybody thinks that it's so clear, kill no human. But what happens if you killed a human? Nobody has any evidence of it. Nobody can remember if it was in self-defense or what. And you're back. Are you going to get punished for that crime?
So my mouth was hanging because I was like, whoa, you know how WayofX is questioning rule number 1? Yeah. This is questioning rule number 2.
Yeah, this book has been like right from the beginning, it has been talking about death. It covers death in all its, myriad different ways. That Krakoa, because Krakoa is basically an island of immortals right now. It's just, but here, we are dealing with all that. And I think this is a really, I don't quite like the shorthand way of doing it. I'd rather it be left as a mystery. And then but I'm kind of happy that it's, I'm of 2 minds. Like, I'm kind of happy that it gets resolved like in half a page, and in such a mundane, kind of way. But like
mundane.
I initially thought that the story would be like a little bit more involved. What did she do? Why is she avoiding answering that question? Because she did avoid answering that question in the beginning when Dakan was like, being sexy and cooking dinner in the boneyard when everyone is trapped in Mojoverse, and then he was like trying to flirt with her, and then just blurts out like, okay, so who are you meeting in Bellingham? And she just like flew off. So this is one of the plot threads that was being resolved here. And I kind of like the fact that Leah Williams like actually tie in a lot of the scenes that we saw in other issues of the gala here, and just say, oh, this happened here, go there, this happened there, go there.
Yeah, I love a good editorial note. That's always
Yeah.
a favorite
Yes.
device of
I
mine.
don't when it's taking up valuable real estate and the art's not very good. And it just
Ooh.
feels like this awkward shoving in of stuff we've seen like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, it's that whole reveal with Aurora and all that was super perfunctory, and it did not exactly inspire me to think about what happens next, because odds are it's not going to get followed up on because the book's over.
Yeah.
Could be wrong. Don't think I am, but we'll have to see. Yeah, the gala was kind of weak because the art was weak, and just it all kind of stemmed out from there. And it was like, tune in for other issues that we've all read already, which is fine. Like, I get it. Wave X did it too. It's just this has a lot less pop.
Yeah.
So thumbs down.
So this part of the thing, actually what I loved the most, and because it started off with like how they're getting ready, and then there's like, it's like such a familial, like like it felt like a sitcom beginning, and then
Yeah.
they were like, get ready right now, arrive, and then he puts his he gets ready and he arrives, and then the 5 are part of the thing. And then I really liked Rachel was saying that I can change this telepathically, and then I think it was Hope, or like I think it was Tempest or Hope, one of them is like, oh yeah, that's kind of nice, like
I think it's Hope.
oh okay, yeah, it's like,
I
oh
think it's
that's
Hope. I can't remember.
nice.
Yeah.
And then Proteus does his thing to kind of bring them there. I don't know whether it was him or someone, but it just like the whole thing was like so nice. And then there was like, they're all having parties and stuff. The one that really stood out to me is that Kyle talking to Captain America, it's like, oh my God, some humans.
Oh, you
And Captain America's like, humans live here?
Yeah. So, I mean, which to the point is like, why is he then so like, so upset later in Planet, in Sword that, oh, we couldn't do it together. Well, you found out mutant and humans are together.
Yeah,
Like, so that's what I'm saying, that it's like an editorial thing. It's like, well, someone else wrote that story
someone should have
better.
pointed out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some editors who knew both stories should be the one who's like, hold on.
Yeah,
this
you
one
can't
doesn't track.
Yeah, you can't do that. What is that? Who is that?
Just a face from the art.
Face.
Just want to show you guys this scene.
Oh, yeah,
because I'm looking at it right now. Like,
Yeah,
okay,
I'm
yeah,
fine with that.
there are drawings on a page. They did draw it.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I'm not talking about it. Listen, if you read X Corp 2, everyone else is absolved. Since then, I don't care about.
I'm not going
worry
that
about,
far.
Yeah, I'm not worried. Like every artist is absolved from facial acting after what we were showing in X Corp 2.
Situation.
I actually like this. I'm really surprised that the discussion's going in, but I'll get to my point.
And also Dracoda's outing as Jamie Madrox's face, like to serving Namor. After those two, everyone is absolved. No, you cannot go any lower than that. So yeah, you can show me all the faces, and I'm like, yeah, sure, it's great. It's Mona Lisa practically. Yes. So yeah, compared to that, but yeah, and I mean, I really love that interaction with like Kyle and Captain America. It's like, oh, you are human, you live here, and then and then also, why do we have Children of the Atom anymore? Because there's literally no reason.
What's happening?
Yeah, there is literally no reason for that.
The mystery
and the thing is, mystery is gone, and then what is the timeline? Because Children of the 3 and 4 ended with them being in the gala, being kidnapped, and one of the characters here. Oh, how? And then I'm like, you can't do that in Marvel. This is not DC. You guys, are you a DC editor? You're not. You're a Marvel editor. Be better. Anyway, I'm done.
It's interesting because I am in a really different spot from almost everybody here. I thought that this was pretty bad. It was bad, but I don't think the art was bad. In a way, I think the actual drawings and the art were fine. I actually liked a lot of the facial acting here, but I think that the pacing was garbage, and especially the amount of bubbles on the page and the way that the bubbles kind of just like start mid-scene. Like, I know that there is a limited amount of space here, but I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Like, I reread it over and over again. Sometimes clearly there was a reverse of a prior scene, but even in that getting ready portion, I could not tell what was happening. I didn't know what the jokes were supposed to be. It reminds me of kind of the worst I've seen Leah Williams do at Marvel with like the beginning of Gwenpool, where it's all just like joke, jokes. And I don't understand what the story is because she's got to fit in her witty word balloons. And that's kind of how I felt here. And I know it's a space thing, but then also as we get into the gala, like, I don't know that we needed this much focus on Dakin and Aurora. I think it's like actually a mistake editorially and authorially to think that that was the thing that we cared about or the thing that needed resolution. I don't think it did. And as the party continued to focus on them and we got like one panel of Lorna and like one panel of Rachel, I kind of just was like, oh, you think we care about this thing, but actually I think we care about a lot of other things. And I think that continued through the issue, and I'll get to it later. I think the shoehorning in of trying to make us care about Dakin actually reversed a lot of the good work that Leah Williams has done with Dakin. So I don't want to kind of linger on it. I just think it was badly executed. Now, maybe if it had all been one artist, if it had all been Baldion, maybe then this idea of slices of party would have come off better because there would have been more consistency in layout. You can do all the color consistency you want, but ultimately, like, the layout can't get that crazy when you've got a team of 3 artists who are supposed to be playing together. But finally, I might like that they had Carmen from Children of the Atom here, because like it introduces an external conflict that makes me more interested in the series than I was from the series itself. Like, we know she winds up at the gala, so something's going to happen in the last Children of the Atom that's not going to totally leave us hanging. I'm not one of these people that needs like every comic every week to resolve in the order that they came out. Who knows, the action Children of the Atom number 5 might all happen in 60 seconds. It might be one of those issues, you know?
Oh, but that's the thing. I'm not talking about the doing it in order. I'm talking about the action that was set up cannot possibly be finished by the time we got here.
Maybe it can. Maybe that's our alien power. Or mutant power. We don't know. We just don't know yet.
Okay.
So
yeah,
between
what
the
about
awkward art,
and I'm
between the awkward art.
All right, let's let Fariha get her last sentence out, then Harry, then Tyler, then we're moving on. Fariha.
No, I'm just saying that, maybe I have been to the different parties than all of you have done, because, you've always kind of said that, oh, the party scenes are not making sense, because parties feel like that. Maybe because I am like the kind of person who really doesn't want to be party, it feels overwhelming. It feels like too many conversations happening at the same time and too many people talking, too many people that you have to focus on. And that scene actually made me feel this way. So I'm like, this is the party scene executed wonderfully.
All right.
Yeah.
Harry?
I just, between the awkward art and the rushed pacing and then the callbacks and then callbacks to future books of Children of the Atom, that when I got to that moment, I was just like, I'm not feeling anything or any kind of like calm or like in sync with the book that I'm usually feeling from X Factor. It's just very jarring, very all over the place. And I guess like, yeah, it is like a party. I mean, I won't even, that's fair. It's just, I don't know, man. This art just lacks so much personality compared to Baldion's that like I can't help but see it as substandard.
Tyler, did you have a final comment there?
Yeah,
before
and then
we move
also
on?
No, that's fine. Fariha, you were saying.
No, I was just saying that also for the caption box, we recently read a comic that could done with the caption boxes, which tells where you were. You know which one I'm talking about. So this caption boxes, when I saw that, I'm like loving it. Thank you for us Nemo brains, not Nemo, Dory brains that that can remember what.
Yeah, I don't remember from one issue to the next what anybody's name is. I need a caption box for every character, every setting. I don't know. Yeah.
So
you're spoiled by Claremont, Peter.
Because I'm spoiled by reading way too many comics, I think is the bottom line.
Marvel did it exquisitely in Marvel Now era. They would put proper caption boxes and funny quips in them and stuff, but they stopped doing that. So when they're doing that, they did it over here. I'm like, yay, someone did something.
Now I'm going to introduce us to this middle portion of the issue. And it's the reveal of what happened to Prodigy, which really you could say has been one of the main plot threads of this entire book. Unfortunately, there's very limited page space to get through it in. And unfortunately, Leah Williams has chosen to have it reflect a real life, actual crime that's been committed, and that's been committed with specific intent against Black queer youth. And so clearly this is going to affect people. And I think when you're going to do a story with that amount of veracity, you need really the room and also the editing and also probably the sensitivity reading to make sure it's going to land. Now, I've been very intentfully listening to Black voices and Black queer voices on this the past couple of days, because I do not have any of the takes that we need to get us through this. And a lot of the things I'm going to mention, I've certainly drawn from listening to a lot of those conversations. But I want to make really clear that the reaction to this has not been monolithic. Some people are actually like, wow, way to put this story on the page. And some people are like, wow, you really should have never put this story on the page. And that's life, you know, not everybody has the same reaction to it. So we're going to just talk in our capacity to talk about it. But we can't rule whether it should have been more controversial, less controversial. We don't have any Black members here on the panel. And I want to be incredibly honest about the fact that we're not all the right voices to talk about this. So David gets his package, which is his costume for the Hellfire Gala. But it turns out it was also his costume for a costume party he went to at a bar. And at that bar, he was specifically tracking somebody who was preying upon young Black queer men. And he decides that he is going to use this opportunity to kind of corner this person. And maybe he will get murdered and maybe he won't, but he'll leave himself both an alibi if he kills the guy, much kind of like the Aurora plot, but also leave himself a trail in case he has to unravel this story later. And so we get to see him go back now having unraveled it and confront this man. And we also get him interrupted in his confrontation by Eyeboy, who gets a super new power, and then by Aurora and Dakin. And then Dakin really thinks it's sexy that Aurora believes in the death penalty, and it kind of all goes down the toilet really quickly. So I want to get everybody's thoughts on this, and I certainly want to talk a little bit about the structure of it, but we can start with anybody who would like to go first here.
I mean, I just want to comment on, like, I know the art is not as good as Baldion's art, but in one of the panel here, I mean, it is pretty obvious that Eyeboy knew that Prodigy was lying when he says that, oh, I left something and I need to go get it. And I mean, the body language and the way he looked at, Prodigy, I mean, I thought it was kind of well done too. So, and that page is not done by Baldion, right?
The
I
one
don't
where
think so.
where David's
No.
leaving the party?
Yeah.
Yes, that is
Arrives.
not, I don't think
No.
that is a Baldion.
Yeah,
He
because
arrives
that's
at Buck's place. That's
correct.
not Baldion.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, but I mean, I don't, I know that the face on Rachel was really weird on that page, but I thought that there are some good things too. So it's not all bad on this part, in terms of the art. So yeah.
This has been a book that's just been so good at balancing the dramatic stuff, the comedy, and flowing between them. And every issue, we've talked about it so many times, it feels effortless. It's so efficient, which is why this is just so much more frustrating, because this entire scene with David just collapses. It like hits a wall like a car accident. I mean, the first thing that's just like, you are not mixing your kind of like comedy with the scene is that David says, I got killed because I fucked around and found out, which is like not the right tone for this kind of scene for me. I was like, okay, we're getting into problems. Like, this isn't good. And then they kind of get into it, and I don't have like the full perspective. I do think much more so than the New Mutants issue that we don't need to see David's dead body in this issue. I don't think it serves any purpose. It's kind of the exact thing we talked about before, but I'm more on Fariha's side with this one. And then it cuts to the Dakin and Aurora stuff in the span of like a page, and they like just, they're getting horny for like no reason really, and it's like switches back to this kind of like a very grim, stark, real thing that like a lot of people experience, to this like, oh wow, we're here, just like, oh, you're so bad, like just it doesn't, none of this fits, not at all. And it just, by this point I was just completely checked out. Like this was a collapse of this very eloquent, efficient kind of pacing that this book has had up to this point, maybe
So
besides the last issue.
Didn't that dialogue that says I got killed because I fucked around and found out was the past Prodigy that said that?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, he might be just trying to make himself less terrified, because he's terrified when he was recording this.
I just don't think it works in the moment, and like maybe that is a read that could be good, but I still just feel like Williams choosing that kind of dialogue at that moment of the story and that specific tone, it just felt very tonally jarring. It's a joke that didn't work. No, it's very much an internet thing, and they've used that kind of
Okay.
glibness in contrast with darker scenes in the past, like Dakin like impaled on that spike in the wilderness. Like there is a kind of like a more friendliness there, and that's is applied here. It's just the context is so different, and it's so much more rushed, and it just I don't know, it didn't work for me.
So, and this is where I was kind of talking about it before, about knowing that you have a continuation or you got canceled and stuff. By now, she knows that she was canceled. Like, you know, this I don't want to say she was canceled, but the series was canceled. The thing is, though, throughout all these time, we had no idea this super dark plot is happening. So knowing that you have to either wrap it up or you don't want to leave it hanging for someone else, that's fine. Change the story. Tell something a little less dark.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. Like, you know,
or don't put Doc and Aurora in. Like, pick one maybe. Like, I get what you're saying, you know?
Or the thing is, like, because like I think like Peter mentioned that this is a real life crime that have happened. So why not just not do that? Yeah. Why not just say that, oh, someone was killing dogs, like, you know, or cats. Someone was stealing pets and I was following them. Like, I make something a little lighter so that you can, because you don't have the time to potentially tell this darker story with longer time, pick something light, end the story, move on. Like, you know,
this
I
is me. Know. No, I think you're absolutely.
That's what I was thinking, and
I think I agree with you. Like, do it right or don't do it. You know.
Yeah. Or the thing is, like, if they didn't show the body, maybe that would have been a little. I don't want to say a little better. Yeah. I mean, that would have been less darker, and yeah. So the thing is, like, it just like have your take and eat it too situation.
Okay, not talking about Dakin and Aurora here. The Prodigy in the reaction of Prodigy in this case is a Prodigy that does not have the context, that, you know, he doesn't remember anything. So he doesn't know this entire thing, which is why I think he doesn't react in a way that is that is like, oh, you know, is sad, is scary, is frightened, or whatever, right? You know what I mean?
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Totally. So that's so I don't know if Leah Williams meant it that way, but this is a problem because there's this short dialogue between Carl and John Paul right at the beginning when John Paul was like showering, and they were talking about trauma.
Right.
So this Prodigy was reborn without the trauma, and so his reaction to this entire scenario is completely off base from someone who lived through it and, you know, say for example escaped from this serial killer. So I think there is a point here in this sense. I don't know if this is a good read of this scene or not.
Well, I think that is, I really do think that comment on trauma in the opening scene was significant to frame the issue and to frame the whole series in terms of both Aurora and Prodigy and the wagers that they're making with their lives and with trauma that they may or may not experience in their deaths. And then the whole gooey center of Siren and Wind Dancer as well. I mean, it's the theme. Yeah. But what I want to do is kind of talk about the anatomy of the scene as it's on the page. I'm not really interested in any of the character motivations because I want to talk about how it was constructed and where some of, I think, the problems are emerging. Because some people found this really upsetting in a lot of different ways, right? So it starts with iBoy bursting in. Now, narratively, we know Leah Williams is doing this because we need a second character in the scene for David to share this exposition with, right? And to that extent, it makes sense. They're close. There's probably it could have been North Star, it could have been Speed, but it makes sense for it to be iBoy because he's also been on his own journey through this issue. But the place where I think it starts to go south, in addition to kind of the lightness of the tone, is that for some reason iBoy has to have a new power here. And this feels like one of those threads where like clearly it was envisioned by this creative team, but I don't know that we needed it. I mean, there was no reason that we needed to blast this guy. There was no, and it kind of turns iBoy's arrival into like a white savior movement, even though David didn't really need any saving in this moment. That's not my take. This is a take that I'm seeing people saying. So whether you felt that way or not, some people are seeing it that way. Did we need to spend a whole page with iBoy gleefully blasting this guy and leaving his smoking body behind? I don't know, right? And so then we got this levity, and then Dakin and Aurora burst in. And so then we get the iBoy telling them the body's here, we can prove that there was a crime. And we see that he pictures the body, but not even just one version of the body, but like this whole 5 bubble sequence of getting closer to the body and closer to the face and seeing this eye on the face. In a way, it's a lot more graphic than what was done with Gabby, because it's using the body as this like reveal moment that is kind of gradually building up to. Now, I do have to point out, this is a police procedural. It is a crime scene investigation book. We've seen a lot of bodies. I think if you think you're going to get through this and never see a body again, you maybe are reading the wrong comic book. But I don't know that we needed the intense zoom in on his still open eye in the basement. I think that's a choice. And then there's no really room to even kind of deal with that, because Aurora goes with this monologue about maybe the guy will get away from police and be shot by them, which I know is trying to make a comment about he's white and that probably won't happen. But again, it's like a weird tone. And again, we have another white character coming into the scene to be like, let me continue to fix this for you. And then it ends on Dakin saying that he's turned on by that, which is all on that same page. So it's a really limited amount of real estate. And it's using Black trauma to let white characters react, and it's using it to let them crack jokes and talk about how much they want to have sex with each other. And then finally, all through this, even though there's an implied angle of sexual assault and lack of consent, it's never stated, which maybe is wise because this comic doesn't have a lot of time to deal with the ramifications of a plot that heavy. But then Aurora just throws it in her monologue just so she gets to say it. Now, clearly David doesn't remember, so Aurora is, adding this information to us, but it's just all of these details together. If there had been more room, if some of the details had been left out, if some of it had been handled better, some people would probably still be very hurt and upset by it. But I think the whole passage of it happening in 4 pages and squeezing in these moments for so many other characters really makes it something that is hard to digest and ultimately potentially pretty traumatic for a lot of readers.
And I don't want to make it sound like, you can't have books that like mix tones and try to like combine things. But in this case where it's 4 pages or like whatever, where it's just literally like characters revealed to have been like assaulted and murdered, then iBoy's Naruto powers, then like dead body the next page, and then like horny other, like it's whiplash, and it just, none of it congeals in anything satisfying. Just for this one book, just frustrating.
I kept thinking about it instead of Aurora and iBoy, if Dakin showed up, who's also a queer character of color, and he's there, and then he's helping Prodigy go through the trauma, or go understand, like not necessarily go through the trauma. I mean, it's a long process, but dealing with the situation, I think it would have read much better.
And not to just wish on a star, but like what I don't still understand, especially with Cable that is not even connected to the Gala at all. Like, what was the harm of giving this book like one more issue and devote this plot to it, just as an idea? Like that could, I just don't understand why. I mean, I guess I know why, because the ending of this book, it had to end with the Gala, but like I don't see why this is where they had to stop it.
Why should it end with the Gala? I mean,
well, the final
ending
page
could still happen.
It could. No, you're right.
Yeah,
and we can still have another 1 or 2 issues of X Factor.
Why not give it a little bit of breathing room rather than ending this on an event with 2 major conclusions and a setup for other things?
I mean,
I don't get it.
I mean, the other thing is that why didn't anyone just step in and say, "Hey, this is too rash. This is too glib to put in a scene like this." And can we change it?
Yeah.
Or can we redo it?
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
That's
someone
exactly
has to
three
be the
editors
one.
credited to this
Yeah,
book. In
because-
addition
because
to
if-
Jonathan Hickman and Akira Yoshida, there are 3 actual X-Men line editors credited.
Because if you are the writer and you are like so invested in the story, sometimes you might miss the the way it comes out to people, because you are like, because in your head you'll be like, oh, it's supposed to be like five pages, and then I have to condense it to like 1 page, and these are the important moments, I'm going to put this back in. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that, like, there are many opportunities, including Leah Williams when she reread it, including the artist, and I think this part should be drawn by Baldion, or maybe not.
Yeah, I think Baldion's pretty much there for all the David plots. And let's acknowledge that in the credits, Baldion is credited as a co-plotter. I mean, they're both behind the story.
So he will be the second person to be like, maybe we shouldn't be doing it this way.
No, he only draws 3 pages. He draws David introducing them, realizing what hit the past self, then the laser blast scene, and then it cuts to another artist showing David's dead body, and then he doesn't come back.
Right. He basically he draws the big David pages in it.
Yeah.
Not including dead David.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Even more traumatizing than all of that is, like, we got the whole letter page that says that this is not ending because of Polaris going, but there was no discussion about this scene or the sensitivity of it.
Thank you.
Or how long it took.
that really ended badly for
I
me.
think that's when I got mad.
Yeah.
That's when I got mad, because it's like, okay, like, come on.
Well, it's just
Like,
unfortunate because
I don't need to know whose decision was it, because Polaris is gone, and just someone held a gun to her head and said, like, you have to write this because Twitter's being mad at us. I don't know what it was. It felt so weird. And then I'm like, well, that's not the issue I read. Polaris has nothing to do with this.
Yeah, it's like, well, we want to give all our readers a fond farewell. We love working on this book. And I'm like, after this last issue, I'm not in a feel-good place to, like, say goodbye merrily to this series. I'm just more like, what happened?
Well, and also it just felt masturbatory to me. Like, if you're not an ex-Twitter person, you don't know all this, like, Polaris vote crap, because you just found that out a week ago in the comic books, or 2 weeks ago anyway. And, Excalibur 20, I think it was, with the Malice issue, which we all really raved about and had a very serious discussion about. And it, never showed anything on panel that was going to be that affecting or upsetting. It let the plot do the lifting. It gave the characters room to respond. And it ended with a content note on the final page with, a suicide prevention resource. So where is that care here, where there's 2 full pages of, I have to say, utter wankery from David Baldion and Leah Williams to let them give a fond farewell to this book? But I guess it's, and I really don't want to, I still found some interesting things in this issue, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm canceling anybody or anything like that. If anything, it just seems like a comedy of errors, like much as you all just explained, like, it's fine for a writer to not see this. It's fine for an artist to not see this, but that's why editors exist. They're supposed to be at enough of a remove that they can say, you know what, we should devote one of these pages to some real life resources about people who are in danger as Black youth, as queer youth, as Black queer youth. Maybe we should give this issue another 2 pages, even if we have to take it up $1. Maybe we shouldn't have a quip about sexual assault 1 panel away from Dawkins, who's a former sexual assaulter, talking about how turned on he is by Aurora. Like, this to me, I know some people are upset and wanting to drop the X line because of the specific things that happen with David, and I want to give them the space for that. But the thing that I'm trying to come back to is, here's this book that a lot of people loved. Here's this book that Marvel just had a Marvel Pride issue, which used a huge amount of this cast to say how good they are at representation. And you have a whole creative and editorial team stewarding this, but it's the book that got cut during Pride Month. It's a book that ends on a sour note in many, many ways. And it's just kind of like, if you can't take this one great thing that was kind of the jewel of the X line for a lot of people in a lot of ways and end it well, then can any of the stories be told well? Can any of it be relied upon? Is anything going to be satisfying,
We've already said it, but it's so frustrating that only Fallen Angels, I believe, is the other book that got cut, or at least, like, ended, like, shortly. The best book in their line, they couldn't give, like, a little bit of
I
don't know.
That's the thing.
Just one issue. I don't know. Maybe that wouldn't fix it. Maybe that it'd still be boneheaded, but, like, at least it would fail more on its merits than just being smushed with all this other stuff that just does not work. I I agree with you, Fariha. They should have cut it. Like they just shouldn't even tried it if they're gonna do it like this. Like
Yeah, I really think they should have just changed it to a different plot.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Like,
I
they
agree.
should have done it. And the thing is, I don't know what the power dynamic is with the editor and the writer. Maybe they just felt that they didn't want to say that, oh, you cut it. Then Leah Williams go on Twitter and like, I wanted to tell a queer tell, and they didn't let me.
That's the thing. Anybody can tell any story with the proper investment of time and space and research and care and sensitivity. And you know what? Some people are still going to hate it, even the best story. But I struggle to think that this one had all of that stuff. You know, like I paged back to the first page to be like, ooh, did it credit sensitivity readers? Was there a content note? Was that like, I looked back through it to be like, hey, did it show me any of these things that people tend to show when they're writing an issue that has this weight? And it didn't. So that's when you can't write the story, when you're not going to put in the work. So speaking of stories, this also ends with the Scarlet Witch dying. I don't care. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say anything about that?
I was pissed because like I just, you can't end. I didn't like that they ended this series with another to be continued for something else, which is like in tune with this line, but like you can't even end this book on any note of finality or conclusiveness, because we're just going to the next thing. And
but that's also this writer writing it, so it makes perfect sense to have that. But now it seems like everyone is mad about everything because
I'm not mad.
This is the writer that is writing the story that is being told. So this is issue 0 of that. So if it's not here, where it's supposed to be?
I don't have wherever they want it. I don't want it. It isn't. Just the fact that this ends so unsatisfying anyway. That like the final thing is, please spend more money next month. It rang really hollow and sour.
But then this was already announced.
Yeah. So
what's the point? I don't.
I mean, that part I don't really mind, because it is what it is. And I mean, we do know that the fact that Leah Williams is writing both books when the trial was announced, before X Factor was cancelled, this could still have happened. It could still say next issue the trial of Magneto, because it does lead into it, right? And yes, it would hurt less. Yes, if we didn't have the scene that comes before, but let's talk purely about this part of the book, right? Like, does anybody think that Magneto was the one who killed her?
No.
Now
I will admit, I'll admit this series seems like it's going to be cool. I'm going to cards on the table.
No,
it
but
seems like a cool comic.
And here's the thing,
you know
how people were talking about, like, upset about all the things that Prodigy happened. I was upset about the way this thing was handled. Like, with Tommy finding out. Like that was a trauma on its own. And then it's like, get out of trouble trauma like this. Can't be doing this. Like, pick one. Like, so I was actually I don't want to say okay, but as I was reading the first all the Prodigy stuff, I'm like, okay, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's glib, it's okay. Then when I came down, like, okay, now come on, you can't do both. Pick one. And then this is also a thing about showing a body, and this is potentially one place you needed to show the body because this is the crime and all of that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, Tommy finding out, that was like, oh, come on, like, why even put them through that, so, and that's the whole thing. And the thing is, like, I don't think it's Magneto who did it, and that's because someone pointed it out. But the thing is, at the same time, to what end? Like, what's that drama?
Okay, I mean, I feel like it's the person who most buy into the whole pretender thing killed her, and he's powerful enough. Yeah,
I was going to say Exodus. Yeah,
because he's powerful enough to do that, and he believes so much into the pretender thing that and the fact that they put, I mean, the red herring is so obvious here. Now you think about it, like in Sword, and then in Way of X, and then with like a drunk Kurt as the alibi, or not alibi, the witness of them dancing together. I just think like that was like, okay, it's not Magneto.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, at the same time, I was hoping that there was like there was something to show that there was a shadow that saw them. You know, something, if there was some setup like that would have been, but anyway, we don't know. We will see.
We don't know. We will see. I mean, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when I say I don't care, it's like,
you care.
What? No, I don't. I
care,
think
Peter.
that it's, I get that this was the end of the gala and it was the punctuation of the gala and they gave it to X Factor because X Factor is going to participate in the investigation. But it also and also because they had Speed in the book. And I think it was great that Speed found Wanda's bodies. Media can show sad things. And so like when that mommy hit hard, and I don't think it did in an exploitative way. I don't think her body in that scene was positioned in a way that was kind of gross or meant to be disturbing. It was a human moment of a kid finding their adoptive /real /surrogate, who can even say, mother dead, right? Who he didn't even know would be on the island. So that's interesting. Yeah. But it kind of just feels like nothing about the X-Men line has been about this, especially if you've been reading X Factor, it hasn't been about this, but even if you've been reading all the books, like where has this pretender stuff really been? It's been focused on in X-Men and in Way of X. And so like, I get that this got it because it's the final scene of the party, but it kind of just feels like that splash page, especially that last to be continued splash page, really kind of belonged in Way of X last week. Because that's where Wanda's been a presence. So it just feels to me like this wasn't a direct crossover. There really was no reason you had to read X Factor last. And so when I say I don't care, it's not that I don't want to read the story or anything, but it kind of just feels like what, why? I think that the Tommy reason is the why, but but even that kind of feels maybe not like a lot of why, especially when, frankly, we're having complaints about how this book handled its first big murder mystery. Now we're like, and read more murder mystery by this creative team. Like, no, actually, I won't.
That is no sense. I mean, Fariha said it's because it's the same writer. That seems to be the only reason. But like, you even have an ending where it's like dead body of Scarlet Witch, and then you get the 2 pages of like, we're great, goodbye, and then it goes to basically the same page, but they name drop Magneto, which just seems like they thought to put that in later.
That last page was not needed.
No, it wasn't.
It was just there for the social shares. It was just so they had something
Magneto. They just wanted to say into the trial of Magneto. That was the only reason.
But here's the thing: how did Wolverine know that?
He can smell
because he can smell
Magneto
things.
on him.
Sure.
On her.
Yeah.
And also, why is it the trial of Magneto? Isn't it actually like the mystery of who killed Scarlet Witch? Like it almost made it seem weird to me that like, of course, let's jump right to the trial of Magneto.
That won't sell. The who
Death
killed
of the Scarlet Witch after WandaVision and with how much X-Men fans
Death
hate.
of Scarlet. Yeah. Now that
Fair point.
It's called Burn the Witch.
Yeah, but they're already doing the Death of Doctor Strange.
I know.
Yeah, you can only kill so many magical characters once. If you're Marvel,
you can only kill so many Avengers at the same time.
Kill them all. Okay. Well, folks, that's been our discussion of X Factor number 10. It's sad that we have to end our discussions of X Factor as a series on this note, but we want to thank you for being a part of the discussion with us. And if you want to listen to us talk about the other gala issues, they have all been covered on this channel to date. So on behalf of Tyler, Harry, Free, and I want to thank you all. And Freya, why do we put ourselves through this X-Men reading together every week?
Because X-Men is better when it's read together. So.
All right, folks, until we get to talk to you again about X-Men or anything else, I hope that you are well.
Bye.